Welcome to The Business of You, the place to be to learn how to confidently express your omnipotence. Yes, your unlimited power. And today we have a phenomenal guest. My friend Baptiste Deepak is here with us today. Hello.
Good to see you again, Sean.
I
How are
know. It's
you?
great to see you. I'm wonderful. And you?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Good. Where are you right now?
I'm out 20 minutes outside of Brussels, the capital of Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's tuning in with us, you guys, today from afar, but coming here to shed some wisdom and knowledge and light with us all around the power of the heart, which is his book and his film that he has created, Finding Your True Purpose in Life. And this phenomenal, beautiful film that was so well done. Baptiste has interviewed some of 18 of the most phenomenal icons around the world to create this book and this film and to bring us some wisdom and knowledge about this beautiful organ that lives inside our chest that no one has really told us a lot about. So today we're diving deep into the power of the heart. And if you've been listening as of recently on my social media feeds, I've been talking a lot about this, especially with the time that we're in right now in the Great Reset. With the pandemic going on and a lot of these new technologies evolving around us, there are some grand changes that are occurring. And I think now more than ever, and I think Baptiste, you'd agree with me, that leaning into your intuition, cultivating that deeper sense of connection with yourself and your innate wisdom, rather than relying on logic and reasoning to give you the truth. The heart is going to give you the medicine in terms of what you really need to know through the feeling that it is constantly sharing with you through its signals and its messaging. And unless we start to disconnect from the social media and the noise, we can't hear our heart. We can't hear that intuitive wisdom and that intelligence speaking to us. And Baptiste, you have a phenomenal story that shares all about this. Why don't you share a little bit about your background and why you even came to create the power of the heart? Because you have an incredible, brilliant story that was, amazing in a moment of transformation from going from being a lawyer to going on this journey that you've now been on. So please share a little bit more about how that happened for you.
Yeah, it's quite a long story, but I will try to give the short version of it. So I was a lawyer in the city of Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and I realized I was just offered a contract with a new law firm, and I had really worked hard to get in there. But then when I was offered the contract, I realized that something was off. I didn't really want to work there, and the problem was that I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, actually. So the company said, you have 2 weeks. If you don't sign a contract in 2 weeks, there's no more offer. So I said, I better figure out what I want to do with my life really quick. So what do you do in this time? If you want to find something, you go on to Google. So I said, okay, how can I find my purpose in life? So I Googled how you can find your purpose in life, and I stumbled upon a video where Oprah Winfrey was speaking with Eckhart Tolle, and they were both speaking about finding your purpose in life. And the video started with Oprah saying, I think there's nothing more important than finding your purpose in life. So that really caught my attention. And then Eckhart continued. He said, if you want to find your purpose in life, then you can ask yourself, what do I want? But a more powerful question would be, what does life want from me? So what does the bigger picture want from me? Mm-hmm. And he said, if you want to find the answer to this question, what does life want from me? You have to look for moments of stillness. And the best way to do that is to go into nature. So the next day I went into nature and I started walking on the question, what does life want from me? Long story short, at one point I really got a download where I felt like it was like falling in love. I received this download that said you have to make a film about the heart. and it felt like coming home. It felt like love. And I said, well, this doesn't make any sense, but it feels so good. And I remembered what Martin Luther King had said. He had said, you know, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. I said, okay, I'm going to follow this aliveness. I will follow this energy. And my mind was immediately protesting, because my mind said, you're a lawyer, so you don't know anything about the heart. And my mind said, you don't know anything about about filmmaking or film production. But when I received this thought, it was such an overwhelming feeling of coming home, love. And I had, followed my mind most of my life. That it really hadn't made me very happy. So I thought, okay, let's give this energy of love a chance. And that's how I started, with no background in film production. I started on my journey, and I said, okay, I'm going to follow the energy. I'm going to follow the aliveness instead of my rational, linear, logical mind. Yeah. And that's the beginning of the power of the heart. And I had no intention of creating a book, but the film was only going to be 90 minutes, and I had so much great material that was not going to be in the film. So I said, okay, let's also create a book. And if you watch the film, then the book goes much deeper into all the topics related to the heart.
Yeah, I loved the film, and I loved that it talked about, it had so many layers to it with the different stories, which are super relatable. I think we've all felt that intuitive nudge, or that deeper wisdom, like don't get in your car, or, we have kind of these moments in life where when we are listening, we see the magic in them, but we think it's chance when it's actually not. And that brings, me to the second piece of this whole thing, which is what you have really hit the nail on the head on, is finding your true purpose and allowing your heart to speak to that.
Yeah.
What that is, what you seek is seeking you, kind of thing. And a lot of people, I think, get out of connection with their heart through their upbringing, and they actually don't tap into this different version, or the alternative version of reality, which includes flow and synchronicities that aren't just random coincidences. They're these perfect moments that align with the path that you're meant to be living. And it's kind of like someone's leaving a little crumbs everywhere.
Absolutely.
And giving you, and basically saying, yes, please move forward, or yes, I'm excited for you, keep going. And when you have that awareness of that intuitive wisdom, and you're utilizing that intuitive intelligence, and you're living in flow, and you're living in synchronicity, I can speak to it, you can speak to it, that life just flows more easily. Like you don't feel like you have to rely on yourself for every answer. And that's because you're letting go of the need for your logical brain to take over, and you're actually listening to this higher, more divine power that is within you. And I think it's really, really beautiful. I think people really struggle to get connected with that when they've been disconnected for so long. Like, what would you say are some of the most important things to facilitate that reconnection?
Well, I think the first thing, and you have watched the film, and we start with an experiment by which has been done many times by the HeartMath Institute in California.
Yes.
And it shows that the heart knows what will happen before the mind knows it. And this gives our brain permission to believe in the wisdom and the intelligence of the heart. So the first thing I would say is that you have to understand, from a scientific point of view, the relationship between the heart and the mind. And if you look at science, it shows that when we are in a state of heart coherence, and they can measure this is a state where we experience love, gratitude, appreciation, and you can create this in your heart. There are methods, ways to do that. Then you will see from the science that when we are in a state of heart coherence, that the heart is sending signals to the brain, and it opens up the brain, and the left and the right brain start to work together more. So we use more of our brain capacity when we are in a state of heart coherence. We become more intelligent, and it makes sense, because when we are nervous, when we are fearful, when we are not in heart coherence, we make stupid choices because we are not using our full capacity. So the more loving
our possibilities, because we're seeing from more of our reptilian brain and from more of that fear brain, and the circuitries of the brain and the neurons stop firing on all cylinders and connecting all the different neurons together within the brain. And I think that's really important for people to hear, is that your physiology changes dramatically when you are in fear and survival and negative emotions. It's only when you tap into the feeling body, which I talk about, of love, gratitude, appreciation, harmony, vibrancy, that you are living from a coherent state. And from that coherent state, you have the heart signaling to the brain through the spinal cord and the vagus nerve, and it's going and tapping into the thalamus, and that is then signaling out to the neocortex and the cerebral to send information that is coherent to create and establish balance and a natural rhythm. But like you were talking about, it's when we get into fear, we start to draw from the field around us and shrink our capacity to think beyond the narrow focal point that we're focusing our intention on, that is resulting in drawing from the field and depleting our immune system, depleting our energy, and draining our life force out of our system. So, yes.
So the more we are in a state of heart coherence, the more our left and right brain start to work together, the more of our brain capacity we use, the more intelligent we become. And I think then the second step is that we start to dive into the relationship between the heart and the mind more. Because in our education system, the mind has become the master. And what we need to see, I think, is that the heart should be the master and the mind should be the servant. They should work together, but you have to understand their relationship. And I always say this: if you are on a boat on a river and you are the mind, then the mind can only see the next bend, the next turn on the river. But if you're at that same river, but you are the heart is like an eagle that can see the whole river from source to sea. So the heart can see the higher perspective, the bigger perspective. But you need both. But you need to understand that the heart sees the bigger perspective, and you need the mind for the practical execution of whatever the intention of the heart is. So Gary Zukav, the author of The Seed of the Soul, he calls this authentic power. Authentic power means that the personality, the mind, you could say, starts to serve the energy of the heart, the energy of the soul, because the heart is the seed of the soul.
100%.
And we will live in conflict most of our lives if our personality is not serving the energy of the heart, the energy of the soul, because there are two identities, the personality and the soul, the personality and the heart. And the soul is your true self. But if your personality is not aligned with the soul, then you will live in this depression-like state because you are cut off from your source. People most of the time have a crisis first because they are so depressed and sometimes even suicidal because they're cut off from their source, and then they have this awakening where they realize they are really the soul, and then all of a sudden they realize, okay, my personality has to serve that energy, and then everything starts to fall in place. And you mentioned the word synchronicity. This is a word that was coined by Carl Jung, and Carl Jung said, synchronicity is this experience where at first you think, okay, there is it's random, but when you look deeper, you see that there's power, there's purpose, there's meaning behind it, and something is showing you the way. So we are all carried by a bigger energy, which is our source, but the problem is our mind is so loud. The mental noise is so loud, and the heart whispers. So we need to create quietness first in order to hear it.
100%. Yeah, and I think that that's something that you and I align on a lot, and that you've taught a lot about meditation and stillness of the mind, or meditation walks, and have that as a diligent practice in your life. And these are really, you know, a lot of the things that are really, you know, calling a lot of people to do that work. And so for a lot of you listening, if you're finding that during these times right now, you're feeling an overwhelming amount of uncertainty, you're tapping into way too much scarcity and lack and fear, this is your sign, if you'd like, to start to really get quiet and be with your heart and be with that innate wisdom and start to quiet that noise. Because until you quiet that noise, you're not going to be able to listen to the subtle shifts and energy and wisdom that your heart is trying to connect with you. And so if right now you are listening to this and you've been in conflict, you got the head and the heart conflict going on in some area of your life, or in multiple, around, you know, maybe you want to pursue something specific, or you want to discover something about yourself, you know, but that requires you to leave a job or change your career or leave a relationship. Listen to your heart. So much of what authority tells us is that we need to eat up what they feed us. And I'm going to tell you to do the exact opposite and start listening to your own innate wisdom. That is your greatest tool. That is your greatest teacher. And forever, it will be continuously there guiding and waiting for you to, you know, ascend your energy and listen. So getting core practices in meditation, starting to build slow. It could be 5 minutes, then 10, then 20 minutes of stillness meditation, or you can brain dump on a piece of paper. There's so many different ways that you can get the monkey mind and the pain body out of your system, but you have to start. And sometimes that's the hardest chapter, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is that we are all wired differently.
Yes.
You and I are different persons.
Mm-hmm.
We're different people.
Yeah.
You're female, I'm male. We have different hobbies.
Yeah.
We have different preferences, and we're wired differently. We have a different blueprint. So when I, you know, interviewed all these wonderful people for the Power of the Heart, I asked them, now, how do you connect with the heart? Because this could be helpful for other people. And Jane Goodall said, I connect with the heart when I'm in nature and working with animals. And Isabel Allende said, I connect with the heart when I'm walking with my dog, or when I'm making love with my husband, or when I'm writing. And Paulo Coelho, the author of The Alchemist, said, I connect with the heart when I'm writing. Right. And Maya Angelou said, I connect with the heart when I'm singing or through prayer. Yeah. And Deepak Chopra said, I connect with the heart when I put my hand on my heart and put my conscious awareness on my heart. And I connect with my heart when I'm praying. And Eckhart Tolle said, I connect with the heart when I'm in the present moment. So point being is, we all have different ways to connect with the heart. And the thing is that we need to figure out what works for us. What brings us into a state of heart coherence? What aligns us with our source? And we know this because it is the aliveness that will tell us. When do we feel most alive? Is it when we are walking in nature, when we're hiking? I mean, you can hike in British Columbia and so many beautiful places. For me, it's being in nature. I love to, you know, do my daily walk. That's the best thing I can do. And then while I'm walking, I cultivate gratitude. I'm so grateful for this beautiful forest. I'm so grateful for the sun. I'm so grateful for the trees. I'm so grateful for being in this body right now. I mean, that's how you connect with the heart. Cultivate gratitude. Connect with your source. Some people have it when they take a shower. I also have it. I play some instruments. I play guitar. I play the piano.
Oh, nice.
I'm not a Mozart, but
Come on.
I love to play, right?
Yeah.
In the film, Mark Nepo says there's a difference between being childish and being childlike. You know,
Yeah.
childish reduces us, but being childlike is being playful,
Yes.
being full of wonder, being open.
Curiosity.
Yeah, curiosity. Curiosity is also a thing. A lot of people say they can't find their passion, but curiosity can lead you to your passion.
100%.
But ultimately, following the heart is choosing a different perspective. And the difference is not to follow your linear, logical, rational mind, but to follow the energy, to follow the aliveness. Every moment in life, you can make a choice. But instead of looking at all the pros and cons and taking the linear perspective, we should take into account, how does it feel? How does it feel if I go left? What is the energy telling me? How does it feel if I go right? What is the energy telling me? You can look at it from an energetical point of view. What is the aliveness telling me? And that's really the power of the heart. I mean, you do it all the time. You know, how does it feel? Why did you choose to have this conversation with me? Was this linear decision, or was it an energetical decision in terms of the aliveness that you felt when you had the idea?
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely like vibrational frequency, you and I definitely align, and that feels good. And we have great conversations beyond, just this one. So it's, there's that connection of facilitating a learning and a curiosity and a depth that we both share and that we both learn from each other. And I think that's where that aliveness comes from, and that connection, not just, at flesh and bone level, but there's that higher consciousness kind of connecting on more of a spiritual wavelength. And I think that a lot of the times we move through life thinking that we're just flesh and bone, and that we're kind of almost, a little bit contained to this physical body, but we don't actually understand our powerful instrument, and we don't know how to make it work for us versus against us. And we also, unfortunately, have been taught to allow other people to feed us and control, what our outcome and what's possible for us. And really the power of the heart conversation and this one today is to serve all of you listening, to recognize that the power and the wisdom is all within you. And that sounds very, kind of esoteric and flimsy, but it's very, very true. I mean, you've experienced it.
Well, if it's not within you, where is it? If
exactly.
If it's not within you, it's beyond your control.
Yeah. And so that's the thing. And this is what we're coming home to in such uncertain times, is you have the power to dictate how you think, how you feel, how you're going to choose to make choices and decisions, how you're going to choose to respond or react, and whether or not you're going to continue to create your life from fear, or whether you're going to create your life from a new perspective that accompanies and facilitates and holds space for the heart to be at the center of how you choose to move forward and make decisions, and get this mind disciplined and in alignment with the heart's true nature. Because that is how you legitimately find yourself in terms
Absolutely.
of that aha moment. It's like you don't even find yourself, because there's nowhere to find yourself out here. You are all within you. It's the discovery, it's the peeling back the onion, if you will, that allows you to really feel who you are. And I use that word specifically because so much of the mind is projecting this identity that keeps us contained in box, that doesn't allow us to liberate our truest expression. But if we lean into the heart, we then realize that there's no need for an identity. There's no need for, all these containments and these fabrications of the stories that we carry with us, and the the pain that we hang on to, the suffering that we hang on, just to hold that identity that we feel like we need to protect. And it's amazing what happens when you start to walk and talk from the heart center and start listening to that wisdom, because just as much as I do, Baptiste, that you literally start to disassociate from the physical identity, the identity of Baptiste Pop, and what that world is, and Sean Flanagan and what that world is and looks like, and you start really not caring so much about those other things, because you have a deeper wisdom within you that you're serving. And that's when that identity starts to realign with what this powerhouse really has for you, in store for you.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel that once you connect with that source energy or the soul, Sean Flanagan is not so important anymore. She's just a vessel. So yeah, it is a great feeling too. If you feel connected with the ecosystem, if you feel connected with everything, if you feel one with everything, why does it feel so good? Because it's feeling like home, because it's your true identity.
Yes. And I think that this speaks to, a lot of people that I've even worked with, that a lot of the time, the lack of fulfillment that we feel is because we've identified ourselves in our pain body, like what Eckhart Tolle talks about, or within our identity, and the myths and beliefs of what we need to be or should be or coulda, woulda. And that totally separates us from anything that feels good. And when we build our life on that, we end up losing. That's where we really disconnect from our heart. And that's when a lot of people get numb and they can't feel anymore. They can't feel joy. They can't feel or be super intimate or really express themselves openly, vulnerably. They kind of look at the sky and go, yeah, it's nice, but they don't really feel the intimacy with that present moment living. Is there anything specific that you can say to that, especially as a man, Baptiste, in embracing the present moment and how that has shifted, and as well as the heart, how that has potentially shifted the way that you as a man are open to connection and vulnerability and expression and aliveness and fulfillment, and how that's opened up the door for you to receive all of those things?
Well, the film opens with Mark Nepo and Paulo Coelho saying a lot of people have become like the living dead, walking zombies. And Paulo Coelho says they talk, they walk, they work hard sometimes, but they're disconnected from their aliveness. First thing that I have realized through producing The Power of the Heart is that everyone that I interviewed just wanted to be quote unquote normal. They just wanted to fit in. They just wanted to be part of polite society, and they didn't want to be different or rock the boat. But there comes a point in their lives where they are all in a crisis, and the crisis is always the same. But you can see it in different forms. The crisis is that they are disconnected from their soul. So the biggest disease, I think, in our time is loss of soul, the disconnection from our soul. And, there's many forms, but, a form can be that you become suicidal. A form can be that you are in a state of depression. A form can be that you have many addictions. But they all are in a dark place, and as long as you are not in a crisis, there is no need to become vulnerable, to become true, to research what's happening. And sometimes you need, and they all needed that, this do or die situation, to open up to that higher identity, which is
Yes.
the heart. And a great example of that is Eckhart Tolle. He was doing his PhD at Cambridge University in England, and he realized that, in his own words, he said, "I cannot live with myself anymore," because he was so depressed. He was very intelligent, but he was completely locked up in his mind.
Yeah.
And at that moment, he realized, oh my God, there are two. There's the I that cannot live with the myself anymore. So that's when he had this awakening where he said, okay, there's the ego, and then there's this heart energy, or he calls it the present moment. And when he had that awakening that we had two identities, that was his way out. That's when he started to connect with the power of now. In the Power of the Heart movie, he says the power of now and the power of the heart are the same. But you have to realize that if you are still quite comfortable, if there's no pain, then there's no need to shift to this different identity. And another good example is the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. He was a prince, and he was not looking for enlightenment. He was looking for a way out of suffering. And that's what caused his enlightenment, where he realized, okay, I am suffering because I'm completely identified with my physical self, with the body, and that's not my true identity, and that's why I suffer. So what I realized is that almost all the people that made this shift to the heart energy, to the soul identity, to the heart identity, they were all suffering, because otherwise there was no need to go there. Because there's this other thing, once you start to live from the heart, people who are not in the heart will not understand you. And Maya Angelou said something beautiful. She said, if you want to really live from the heart, the most important virtue that you need to develop is courage. And why is that? Because courage is derived from the Latin word cor, but also in French we say cœur, which also means heart. We need to develop courage, because if you start to live from the heart for the outside world, it doesn't make sense anymore, because you're not listening to an outer authority. You're not listening to your education, to your teachers, to your parents, to everyone around you. You're listening to an inner voice, an inner authority.
Yes.
And it doesn't make sense. So in order to pursue the voice of the heart, you then need, of course, courage to stay true to that voice. But when you have went through a difficult time, where you are depressed, or where you are really cut off from the aliveness, when you have gone through a crisis, you are not so fearful anymore about what other people think, right? Again, everyone wanted to fit in. Then there's a crisis, and the crisis causes them that they are basically pushed, they're pushed to that new identity, which is the soul. And then they say, okay, I'd rather, listen to that inner voice than to the outside world, or to my mind, because that has caused the crisis in the first place.
100%. And I'm so grateful that you brought up the crisis, because that was the start of my awakening. But it's very true, I feel, because that's been my experience. But if anyone who's listening right now is going through a crisis, you're suffering in some way deeply, maybe you're going through a horrible breakup, or maybe you're in the depths of depression. I understand. I've been there. It's challenging. It's uncomfortable. It's foggy. It's dark. It's lonely. The only way that I would share with you to look at what you're experiencing right now is as the greatest opportunity is where you are right now. And the way that you can take the next step is to begin to connect with your heart, and just do it day by day, slow and steady, and develop that patience and that level of peace and compassion with yourself from your heart center, and allow that to slowly build momentum, and do it diligently, like brushing your teeth, morning and night, to really develop that center line with your seat and with your soul, that then the brain will start to respond to and rewire itself. And yes, you have to do the work to reorganize, or shed the layers that aren't serving you, and adopt new practices that do serve your well-being. But recognize that you are in a moment of darkness, but that has beauty as well. And that also may just become your biggest blessing. Yep. And I can vouch for that, because that has been my path and that has been my experience. And I don't know, without many moments of those, would I have chosen or made decisions that fundamentally impacted me at a deeper level, that made me choose things differently in life and see things from a different perspective and vantage point, that allowed me to grow into more of an authentic expression of myself, as well as to discover and nurture some of those curiosities, which then became, the gifts and the talents. No different than you, Baptiste. I'm a lawyer. I'm in my identity. I have no idea how to make a film. I have no idea how to write a book, but okay, this is going to be a journey. It's like, take the inner child and go for a walk and see what you find, and what type of flowers you get to pick, and what kind of bouquet you have at the end of it. And that becomes, if you can see it as an adventure, if you can see it as, a beautiful storybook that you get to write, with your inner child and the wisdom of, that deeper soul, and enjoy the present moment living, your life can turn out so much different. And you can truly find that true connection with purpose and meaning and fulfillment and abundance and excitement and joy and aliveness and vibrancy and gratitude and appreciation that you're longing for. And that, to me, is the only way to get there, is through the power of the heart. And for, anyone who really doesn't still think that it's important, if you're more of a scientist at heart, there are now devices that can show you the coherence between your mind and heart, thanks to the Heart Math Institute. And they are called M-Wave devices that you can actually purchase from the Heart Math Institute. I also have a friend, so you can reach out, who also sells them. So you're welcome to reach out to me if that's of interest to you. But it helps you develop your meditation practice. It helps you understand your mind and heart coherence, and it allows you to see tangible results. So if you're someone who needs those statistics, if you need that data, we're living in the technological revolution, people. We have that for you. So it's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Excuse me, Sean, do you have one moment? There's someone at the door. I'll be right back.
Absolutely. So you guys, when it comes to finding your true purpose in life, leaning into your aliveness, leaning into your heart, living from your heart, letting your heart be the seat and the driver, and programming and reprogramming, designing and feng shuiing your brain and neural circuitries to serve that depth and serve the seat of your soul, is what's going to allow you to cultivate an incredible amount of true courage, resiliency, vibrancy, fulfillment, abundance. And I can tell you right now, from my personal experience, that living from the heart and from the intuitive wisdom compass, you begin to see life more clear. You begin to walk more in the present moment so you can actually experience fulfillment and joy. And that's really what we're talking about here, with the power of the heart and finding your true purpose, finding that meaning for yourself. It's not somewhere outside of you, it's all within you, and you have to go inwards. And it does take time, it does take diligence and work in terms of making space for that to have a priority in your life. And if you don't make it a priority, then you're going to get the same result. And so the wisdom that we have to share with you is your heart is your key and the most amazing wisdom compass that you can possibly listen to, beyond the external noise, and listen to it. If you're struggling, if you don't know the answers, get quiet, get still, reconnect that disconnected cord, or build more endurance and strength within those cords to build up your resiliency. Slowly wean out the noise and allow that natural wisdom to flow within you so that you can discover your magic, own your brilliance, and share powerfully what it is that you have to share with the world. What about you, Baptiste?
Well, I agree. And I think it's important to realize that linear rational thinking is very limited. The heart, the seat of the soul, is connected to everything. So it can tap into everything. And there's this... I don't know if you've heard of Edgar Cayce. He was, they called him the sleeping prophet. He was the most documented psychic that ever lived. And there's still the Edgar Cayce Institute in Virginia Beach. And there's a big library with all of his channelings and readings. But he was connecting with the Akashic records. And the Akashic records is like a big library that has all information from the past, from the future, from the present. And he was just tapping into that. And you have to understand that once you connect with your soul, your source, that is working from a unity consciousness, oneness, yes. You have, if you really know how to do this consistently, you have access to almost all information.
Yes.
And that's something that your mind cannot give you. Your mind is very limited.
No.
And we all have these moments where we get this intuitive information and we know that it's not coming from the mind because it's non-linear. And people ask you, how did you know that? But it's an intuitive moment. It's an eureka moment sometimes. I mean, Einstein had his best moments not when he was thinking really hard, when he was, taking a bath, or when he was walking in nature.
Yeah.
So if we focus on something, and a good example, I mean, there's a reason why they called him the sleeping prophet. So Edgar Cayce had to sleep in order to do his channelings. Why was that? Because when he was sleeping, his mind was not working. He was really connected with his higher self while he was sleeping. And that's, it's a very good tip that I could give people is, if you have something that you want an answer to, is, write it down. And before you go to sleep, 15 minutes before you go to sleep, 15 minutes, focus on that question. Yeah. And if you do this consistently, then you will get answers to that question, because the mind is not working while you're sleeping. And then your subconscious, your higher self, can come in and answer the question. The reason why we are not hearing intuitive information is because our mental noise is too loud.
Yes.
And we need to, look for ways to enhance the signal line of the soul, and to make sure that the mental noise is getting more still. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to touch on that too, for anyone who's listening, and wants to put that into practice. So when you're going to sleep, the prefrontal cortex does all of the, the hardcore logic and reasoning, and it's more in touch with what's happening, and it's very, on point with, more of those cognitive challenging things that we have to do day to day. And that part of the brain specifically is the part that shuts down when we go to sleep. And what's really cool that I actually thought maybe I'd touch on now that you shared that is if anyone's even attempted lucid dreaming as well. Lucid dreaming is also another way that you can train your brain, or that you can access basically more time to be curious, or to, have experiences, but in the dream state. And when you're lucid dreaming, you're actually turning on the prefrontal cortex. So you're waking up inside your dream and then being able to kind of walk around and create experiences that you want to have, or recreate challenges that you might be struggling through, and solve those problems, for the other 8 hours that you're sleeping. So it's fascinating, all of this accessible, extra accessible time that we have, if we want to start adopting practices that are going to help us, be more enlightened, allow us to tap into our authentic power, and connect with that deeper seat of our authentic self that feels purposeful and meaningful to operate and live by. So for any of you who want to learn more about how you can find your true purpose in life, definitely The Power of the Heart by Baptiste D. Pape here is a beautiful, beautiful book. You can get it anywhere in the world. Amazon might be the fastest right now. And The Power of the Heart. And you can just share.
And you can also go to our website, thepoweroftheheart.com.
Yeah.
Learn more, and that's where you can also find the film
as well. And for any of you who are wanting to dive into more of the scientific side of things, heartmath.com is where you want to route your attention to. They have amazing clinical studies and just a wealth of knowledge, and beautiful people that are doing top of the line research and bringing us an amazing amount of data about our truest power and our truest state as human beings. So let's not forget that. You're not just a human doing, you're a human being. And it's time, with the power of the heart, to connect the being to the human again, and empower yourself, empower your light, get into that higher frequency vibration by elevating your feelings, and that feeling of gratitude, appreciation, and higher vibrational patterns that's going to support you in moving through these uncertain times, and leaning into, living the creative life, or the authentic life that you feel called and nudged to live. So don't let fear block you. Stay on the path, lean in, do the work, and know that there are lots of us around that are on this journey, and we can all vouch, for our own paths, and with one another together, to tell you that leaning into the heart is one of the most courageous and most powerful things you'll ever do in your life. So
yes, and I would also like to say that how can you connect with the heart? And I think it's always through experimenting. I mean, we are so used to doing everything with our mind, and we can only learn to work and live more from the heart if we start to connect with it through experimenting. And with experimenting, I mean, every time when you have to make a choice, you can look at all the pros and the cons and use your head and your linear thinking, but you can also look at the feeling place. How does it feel when I do this? How does it feel when I do that? And with everything you do, take into account the aliveness that you feel, and start to listen to the aliveness and start to feel the aliveness. And then once you start to do that on a regular basis, then you start to realize that this is a higher intelligence. And Maya Angelou said, every day you have to do the work. Every day you go to the heart. Every day you say, teach me, show me the way. So it's a conscious decision that you have to make every day, again and again and again.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Bless you. Is something that you just said, and it just reconnected me to one of my creative projects I did with my first film. And the first line I wrote says, show me the way.
Yeah.
And I think that's really a surrendering and an acknowledgement that, you know, when we lean into our heart, we can tap into a power, to our own innate power that we are fully connected to, but that we have the support of higher consciousness to lead us in life. And we have that at our disposal. It's not just for the lucky few, it's at everyone's disposal. If you literally have an organ in your heart, and honestly, for every being alive, that is true. So thank you so much, my friend, for being here.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, Sean.
I know, it's so good always. But I love your work. I love what you've done. I love your message. I love that you're driven to find truth. You're driven to live in your curiosity, and it's very inspiring. And the work that you've done here and the choices that you made, I can't thank you enough. And I'm sure many people can speak to that. So thank you for the time.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much for all of you listening. Thank you for being with us today. You're amazing for taking this time to reconnect with your heart and be here with us today to learn more wisdom about how you can empower yourself, empower your life, and tap into your innate aliveness to express yourself wholeheartedly with the time that you have here on earth. So thank you for joining. Stay tuned for the next episode on The Business of You. And thank you once again for coming back. Have a wonderful time. See you later, guys.